The most interesting man in the world has landed at Nebraska. Let's allow Matt Rhule to explain.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Another week closer to Game Time. Connor Happer here from 1620 The Zone. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. It was a busy weekend. We'll touch on the volleyball madness. Apparently Nebraska has 2 top 10 volleyball teams. We'll talk
to be the
about
case.
that. Yeah, later on. I don't doubt that, actually, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then a lot was covered on Friday and Saturday at Memorial Stadium, where Troy Dannen sort of gave his State of the Union. Nebraska had their first football fully padded scrimmage of the fall, and Matt Rhule gave us a little bit of an update on that. He also laid out kind of what the next couple weeks look like for them as they get closer and closer to game prep. He's already previously talked about how they really don't have a lot of flexibility in what they do as far as how much they practice, just because of how few padded practices they're allowed. But it was busy. Mitch, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. It was good. Just dodging the rain. It rained at every possible moment. Otherwise, everything went well. So yeah, Nebraska has 5 practices left in preseason camp. Today, on Monday, the Huskers are practicing. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And then there are 4 practices next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that are not considered part of camp because that's like game week prep.
Practice.
It's practice. It's not game week yet. That's the week after. But that starts on Friday. Since it's a Thursday game, a week from Friday, they'll officially be in game week, which is a little bit mind-blowing at this point. Like, camp is winding to an end, and they scrimmaged on Saturday, and it was a good day for the offense. Dylan Raiola, Emmett Johnson, according to the head coach, were badgering him to get more plays for the offense, but it was previously established that they would only run 40 with the top unit. So that's what they got. You're not going to go out there and get somebody hurt in an extra play because your quarterback or your running back was bugging the coaches to just do one more play. Rhule did announce 2 injuries that occurred last week. That's Bly Hill, the cornerback, and Gage Stenger, a linebacker, the Millard South grad, who was in line to be a big-time special teams contributor. Bly Hill had the patellar tear, the tendon tear, back in the spring of 2024, and his surgery did not hold up when he got back into camp here. He played some last year, but when he got back into camp this month. So 2 knee injuries, they're both out for the season. That's 3 major injuries in camp so far, counting Mac Markway from the first week.
Yeah, but nothing too crazy as far as the front line is concerned. Hate it for all those guys, especially Bly Hill, who was just kind of getting back into it, according to Rhule. So there's the bad news. There's some good news. As you mentioned, Mitch, the offense was, quote, really, 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 really efficient in the scrimmage. 4 reallys. He was checked on that later in the press conference by one of our esteemed local media members, Steve Sipple. Fantastic stuff by him. But the story emerging yet again from camp is the punter. Nebraska's new punter, Archie Wilson, who's from Australia. And according to Matt Rhule, he's about to play in 2.5 weeks in his first ever football game. It'll be in front of 70,000 Nebraska fans and like 8 Cincinnati fans or something like that. The hype train has not slowed down on Archie Wilson here.
Troy Dannen did not slow it down at all by suggesting that ticket sales to this point have been 10-1 in favor of Nebraska fans. He's basing that on zip codes and such, which is not an exact science. There could be Cincinnati fans in Kansas City who've bought tickets, but
there could be Nebraska fans in Ohio.
That is true. That is true. I think it's going to shake out somewhere in the neighborhood of 10-1 when they kick off on August 28th. And they're expecting a sellout. That's what Dannen said. 66,000 tickets is the latest update. And what is Arrowhead? It's around 75. Yeah. So they'll probably sell it out. But I will ask you this before we get to our conversation and hear from Matt Rhule about Archie Wilson. Did we sniff this out? Did we know that? Did we on this podcast discuss this with bated breath back in July? And even before that, like when the Archie Wilson stuff started to come onto our radar, I feel like we were really excited about what Archie Wilson might be, even before Matt Rhule got into his well, you'll hear it from the coach and the head coach in a minute.
Yeah, I think there's an element of like, I think what Rhule see, and like I said, like Mitch said, we're about to hear him explain it, but like, I don't think he's ever seen anything like what Archie Wilson brings to the table. And maybe Nebraska fans haven't either. So I think there's like a wow factor that comes along with them. But I do believe we did predict that this would be one of the stories of camp. And it certainly has risen to that level right now.
He's going to have one of the most unusual, if he has a good game against Cincinnati and Arrowhead, and then they come back the next Saturday to play Akron, it's going to be one of the more memorable debuts for a true freshman ever to come onto the field. I mean, yeah. Like, I get it when Adrian Martinez and Dylan Raiola walked out onto the field as true freshmen for the first time. There was great fanfare, and I'm not saying that it's going to be like that with the fans, but the first time that Archie Wilson goes out to punt against Akron, as long as he does his thing in the opener, it's going to be really interesting to see. Like in a like just a fascinating kind of way. People will start to get. Let's just play what the head coach had to say. Here it comes from Saturday.
I've never enjoyed punt periods in my life, but it's my favorite period of practice right now. I just could watch Archie punt all day. I've never seen anything like it. So it's like watching a YouTube short. I mean, the guy's amazing. So what he does. So I used to walk over the O-line during punt period, or kind of stand to the side. Now I'm out there like with popcorn because it's really a fun thing to watch. I hope we don't punt a lot, but when we do, it'll be fun.
You say he's amazing. Is it because of the distance and accuracy, or just the fact that he's can do it with both feet, or like what specifically amazes you about his ability?
So think about this. We're going to go to Arrowhead Stadium and play at 8 o'clock at night with a kicker who can kick with both feet and kick all the kicks. It'll be the first ever football game he's ever played in, I believe. He's never played in a football game before. Now, he might come up and say, no, I played in – to what Eck told me last night. I knew he was at Pro Kick or whatever, is it Pro Kick? Someone wrote a story about it, right? Pro Kick? I don't want to make sure thank you, Pro Kick. But he's never played in a game before. It'll be his first ever football game. I mean – and he knows every player on the team's name. He's 18 years old. He left his country. He left his family to come here to play a sport he's never played before. There's not a guy on the team that doesn't love him because of his personality, not just because of what he do. So I think, Mitch, it's a multifaceted thing. He's one of the coolest dudes around. He's got so much juice. He's one. Sometimes I'll say something. A lot of guys are like afraid. He'll come back at me with the most witty retort. And then, you've seen before when we did Chasing 3 last year, we'd have like talent shows and guys get up and sing. Well, the one team meeting, I wasn't there. We had a head coaches meeting. Susan ran it, and he got up and he sang Piano Man. And it's like, the guy crushed it. So like, he's just like the most interesting man in the world to me. But I think what's cool about it is just what he can do and the system. Like we've got athletes out there. He's rolling left. He's rolling right. He can straight punt. He can directional punt. He can banana kick, as I said last time. So there's just a lot of different things. And you should see the guys back there catching punts. Jacory, Mosey, Caleb Benning, Andrew Marshall. I might be forgetting one, but those guys are having to catch all those kicks. So I think we're going to be way better. And we haven't even introduced the south side of the stadium wind yet. So I think it's going to be a really interesting dynamic.
I like the dismount of that. I think it's going to be kind of interesting. So that's great. And
never heard a coach talk about a freshman like that.
No.
Like, I know he's a punter, but like he's hyping him up. He's his hype man.
Okay, but now we got me really interested as an avid karaoke person.
Oh,
and
he's Billy Joel.
And a huge fan of Billy Joel. One of my, I tout this all the time. One of my best like karaoke performances of all time was when I did Piano Man at a bar in Vegas. And I just like, I felt like you were up there and you feel like you have the crowd just like eating out of the palm of your hand. There's no feeling like it. So this guy comes in and he's 18 years old. He doesn't know nobody. And he just rips off Piano Man in front of the whole team. Like that takes some guts, man. This guy's after my own heart now.
It's legendary. Let's just get a little taste of Archie Wilson right here.
Archie Wilson.
Right. I mean, to have it on loop there. That's only he just said it one time. Yeah, we hold on. Let's just do this.
Archie Wilson.
Archie.
That's him saying his name. So we have heard his voice now. That's Nebraska has a pronunciation guide that they make available to media.
So you mentioned what the reception is going to be for him at the first game. I mean, now I'm sort of thinking, is there a call and response? Is there an Ozzy, oi, oi, oi? So like, I mean,
I don't know. That's going to take some time to develop. But yeah,
a little generic. I mean, maybe we do something special for this guy. I don't know. Hopefully he's a really good punter, because if not, it will break my heart.
Hopefully and it sounds like he has a great personality. I mean, if he can, as an 18-year-old or 19-year-old, if he can rip off Piano Man in front of the whole team, he's got to have a personality that's going to light up the room when we get the chance to talk to him, which all indications are that's going to be tomorrow on Tuesday.
Ooh.
This is going to be Mike Eckler Day in front of the media. And then we're hoping for specialists. So we should get to hear from Kyle Cunanan, Kevin Gallick, and Archie Wilson. That's the kicker and the long snapper, comparatively anonymous to the freshman punter. But still, the newcomers at the specialist spots, are going to get their introductions to the state of Nebraska, and everyone's going to go crazy over Archie Wilson.
Oh my God, that's going to be an electric day on Tuesday. I maybe one of the more anticipated, like mid camp days we've ever seen in terms of media availability.
How do we say this in like the correct kind of way that's not going to offend anyone? Archie Wilson coming in as a freshman at Nebraska with that accent and all of this juice that Matt Rhule has put on him. Like, what's it like when he gets on campus the first day and starts like, what if he just like walked down sorority row? What's going to happen? Like, does he just have his choice? Like take your pick, Archie.
Maybe
like
maybe he's just one of those, kind of cool dudes who like, he keeps it kind of low key when he's out in public, or he's got too big of a personality where people just flock to him. Like this fascinating.
If he wants, I think he can live the greatest life of a punter that's ever existed at Nebraska.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very.
And the NIL thing, I mean, pretty soon he's going to be commanding big dollars. Like, think of the endorsements. I know there were at one time some limitations on international students on what they could earn through NIL. I think that's been fixed. The rev share stuff, like, man, to be Archie Wilson today,
I would like him to voice over the show. We could pay him a couple $100 or something like that. He could do instead of the person at the beginning who says this is Locked On Nebraska, we could have Archie Wilson do it. This is Locked On Nebraska, something like that. Like
he is Crocodile Dundee at this point.
Yeah, I apologize if that was offensive in any way.
All right. We've talked enough about the punter. Let's take a break and come back and talk about some of the positions that Nebraska can use to score points on Saturday. We'll go to the running backs first after this. But a moment right now to tell you about Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends and family? Maybe it's game day and suddenly you realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. You're going to save money. You can splurge on other things. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the Game Time app drop the closer you get to the beginning of the contest. They've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Maybe you are headed to Kansas City here in a couple of weeks, and you're sticking around after the Nebraska football game against Cincinnati because you're in a celebratory mood and you want to go check out the Royals on that Saturday night. You know, there's a Nebraska theme at Kauffman Stadium. If you need tickets, the best place to check them out is on Game Time. You can see your seat view before you buy. You know exactly where you'll be. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Nebraska podcast on this Monday. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. We are 2 weeks and some change away from Nebraska's opener. Hopefully we didn't offend anybody with our Archie Wilson commentary there in the last segment, but having some fun with Nebraska's freshman punter. I think it's going to be an interesting week as we hopefully get to hear from him and from Mike Eckler. If Rhule is hyping him up like that, then I can't imagine what Coach Eck is going to have to say on Tuesday. Also on Saturday, after the scrimmage, Matt Rhule shed some new light on a few position battles in camp. The competition at left tackle, Connor, is very real between Elijah Pritchett and Gunnar Gatula. If we had any questions about that, what Rhule had to say on Saturday, that these two are even and like duking it out rep for rep, was certainly eye-opening.
Yeah, I think so too. And it sounds like, you know, they have 3 or 4 guys that they feel pretty good about for 2 spots. That's a good spot to be in. I still will probably defer to the default and say Elijah Pritchett is the guy that's going to be out there day one. But, you know, if the lose, as we've speculated before, if the loser of that battle has to go play right tackle, I think that seems like a pretty good situation for Nebraska, and maybe it ends up that way.
It may be that way, or it may just be that they go with Teddy Prohaska and Tyler Kanak over on that right side. I kind of think that, like, yeah, there's a chance. Like, I don't think Pritchett's going to play right tackle, but if Gatula loses out by a narrow margin on the left side, he could go play right tackle. So yeah, something to watch for sure as Nebraska finishes up camp. In the secondary, it sounds like the Huskers have their starting 5 with Andrew Marshall and Sierra Wright at corner, and then Deshaun Singleton, Malcolm Hartzog, and Marquise Buford in the middle at safety, and nickel, or rover. Sorry, nickel's more of a corner spot, but they have depth, and we've discussed that and been over that, and that continues to be the case as we hear about other young players in that group for Addison Williams. The most notable position battle, I would say, that Rhule updated on Saturday involved the running backs. So Emmett Johnson, of course, is clear number 1. Quentin Ives, who came into the fall, or at least out of the spring, as RB2, suffered a hamstring injury on the first day of camp. He's still out. So in his absence, it's been Isaiah Mosey, the true freshman, converted wide receiver, and Mekhi Nelson. Those two who have stepped up, and you know, Rhule made it clear that they're the two who are getting the reps with the next unit at this point.
Yeah. So Rhule had some interesting things to say about that group and what should be expected of people who aren't Emmett Johnson. Here's Rhule from Saturday.
Yeah, there's a misconception out there. We got great backs. Yeah. If anybody doesn't think we have 3 great backs, then can't wait for them to see these guys. I mean, Mosey's a dude. Mekhi might be one of the fastest guys I've ever seen going from, you know, first 5 steps. Now they have to go do it in the games, right? Like, I'm just talking about in practice right now. I mean, but I think that's a loaded room for us. You know, Kenneth Williams is out there balling. Connor Booth, tell you what, he's just gaining his stride right now. So Emmett obviously has like some pelts on the wall and some pedigree being out there, but you know, Mosey and Mekhi are making a tremendous push. Quentin's still out, you know, so we're hoping we get Quentin back this week. But those other guys have just raced ahead, and they both can catch the ball out of the backfield, and they both can protect. You know, EJ does such a good job. Like, you can't play on our offense if you can't protect, and so they do a nice job of that. But you know, we moved Genatone over to tailback. You know, so we have a 230-pound guy that runs, you know, 22.5 miles per hour. So he had some good runs today, and we're hoping he can. I'm hoping he can get in that I formation and short yardage and go get that yard when you need it. I know Emmett can, but can we have another guy like Genatone that can? So I'm really pleased with that room. I have some concerns. That's not the concern for me.
So my read from that is that Nebraska has like 6 running backs that are ready to go in week 1.
The Genatone thing is an interesting, like side story to maybe think about. I don't know, I don't know if that comes up much during the season, but like he sounds like he really likes, Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey. So that's a good thing.
Stressed syllable on the second part of his name, Mosey.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There's a part of me here that feels like they're still trying to speak some of this into existence. And I don't know if that's because Nebraska under Matt Rhule just hasn't been able to produce the kind of consistency at running back that you would like to see, or if it's just the stark lack of experience in that room. Like it felt in the offseason like the Huskers were really walking on eggshells at the running back spot, because if Emmett Johnson if Emmett had been the one who pulled up with a hamstring injury in the first half of the first practice of August, I don't know that they would be talking quite with such confidence about this group, and that's understandable. But, it doesn't sound like, based on what he says here, that there would be panic. I think a lot of the fans, and I think like the general feeling about the spot, if that had happened, would be panic. And nothing that he says here about Mosey or Nelson would change people's feelings until they saw those guys out there moving the chains.
I'll say this. I think generally what you're looking for in your second and third ball carriers in the backfield is them to be able to do what is required of them, right? So it's role players, but also, can we put you in the game for at sometimes prolonged periods of time? And so what you're really looking for is guys that you can trust. And usually, for especially young guys, the last thing that they figure out is pass pro, and blocking and stuff like that, and where to be. So if those guys have it, then they shift nicely into that spot. They could put them out on the field and trust them. I don't know what you're going to get in terms of a top end from either of those, just because, like you said, Mitch, we just haven't seen it. So it's hard to be really excited about it, but it's good to know that they have some trust in them at this point.
Yeah, he made it a point to mention that they've picked up the pass protection, but I'd be really wondering that if those guys get put into a position in week 1 or week 2 where they have to play important minutes, because you can't have a situation where Mekhi Nelson is out there and he doesn't know the protection on a certain pass play and Dylan Raiola gets lit up as a result. Like, now you need to sit down for a long time until you can figure that out. That's how that conversation would go.
Yeah. So it's, that's a good thing if they can put them in there and feel
if they trust them in pass pro, then that's great.
You got a lot of the equation solved. And then he talked a little bit about linebacker depth, mentioned Dasan McCullough, Willis McGahee working at that jack. He mentioned a couple other guys, I think, as well. He actually mentioned that Dylan Rogers is coming along a little bit. Jordan Ochoa's in there too. So that's good to know that you had some real depth at that spot.
At the jack spot, yeah. And I think, so that kind of goes hand in hand with the conversation about not a lot of depth up front on the D-line. So you have on the D-line Riley Van Poppel, Elijah Judy, Cam Lenhart, and Keona Davis for 3 positions. And after that, he was asked about the depth behind those guys, and he mentioned David Hofkin, Sua Lefotu, Mason Goldman, and Ashton Murphy. And those guys just have not played at all. So you're then in a position where there's a big separation, at least in terms of experience, and what you could expect right away from the first group and the second group. Well, where they might get a boost is from the jack position, because it's not explicitly a D-line spot, but depending on how Nebraska lines up in this scheme, it could be. It can be used like a D-line spot. If you need a little help up there on the D-line, then maybe a couple of these guys are playing. And I realize they're not 300-pounders, but McCullough and McGahee as a 1-2 punch at jack is as good as they have at any position on the field with a 1-2 punch.
And then those guys are like pass rush types, and Ochoa is more of like D lineman, like that type.
Yeah, like a bigger guy, like a traditional defensive end, and Maverick Noonan and Dylan Rogers. So they appear to be deep, really deep at that jack spot. I don't know if they can play 4 to 5 jacks, like if that number of players at that position can fit into what Nebraska wants to consider its like active roster in NFL terms. And that's a philosophy that Rhule wants to use this year, like the top 53 to 57. I don't think you can have 5 jacked linebackers in the top 53 to 57, but that obviously doesn't matter. You can take them on the road. You can have them at home games, and it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, quick break now, as we'll hear from Troy Dannen on the future of Memorial Stadium after this. All right, so Troy Dannen came to the press conference on Friday and shared some things, sort of like a State of the Union. He was asked about all sorts of things, as we talked about on the Thursday and Friday podcast. What the topics that might be, and there was some really interesting stuff about how revenue sharing is working and how Nebraska is adapting in that situation before the Memorial Stadium stuff, which will be the topic that we talk about here.
I'm curious, like, how much do you people who are our listeners, how much do you care about the rev share stuff? Like, I was taking note of, because I was posting, on Twitter on Friday when Dannen was speaking, and I noticed like a lot less engagement on those postings, like how he talked about the way that Nebraska is going to distribute rev share dollars. Now, he wouldn't give numbers, but he said it's going to involve 4 sports. And then he mentioned several other sports that got increased scholarships, which comes out of the rev share pot. Like, and I kind of felt like, people weren't commenting on that. Like we're going to still, discuss this at times, but drop us a comment. Let us know if that stuff interests you, and we'll discuss it. If so, we'll discuss it more over the next couple weeks before the opener. But the thing that I think does, go ahead.
It's a lot of detail stuff, which you can get lost in the weeds sometimes in that. But the big picture was Memorial Stadium and the future of that project, which has now been talked about for 3 years or so.
Oh, at least. Yeah. I mean, Trev Alberts brought that up. It wasn't long after COVID. So Troy Dannen, what is the current status of that project?
A lot of people are interested, speaking of the stadium and where the Memorial Stadium project is at. I would tell you status quo. A couple of things. When I say we're continuing to plan, in a normal time, a stadium project like this, all of this work would be done without anyone knowing we're doing it. But the fact that the project was out there in the public, approved to some degree in planning by the board, I think everybody's waited for the next step. We're continuing, basically looking at east, west, north, and south in totality. This week, the chancellor sent a note out talking about the structural deficit of the university. The president's spoken about some of the system-wide financial issues. There's going to be a lot of trauma ahead. We're not going to take anything to the board for their approval, and I don't know when we will. But the time is not now, in the midst of what I would almost level some degree of crisis on campus, consternation at the very least, crisis at the very most. Now's not the time to debut a big capital project. But we're going to continue to work on the plans. We're going to continue to fine-tune the financial model. And at whatever point in time I think we can comfortably take it back, we'll take it back. But otherwise, I would just say status quo.
Whew.
Fascinating.
That's pretty stark. That's pretty, like, he didn't mince words there. He said, we're not doing this right now. We're going to wait until the climate financially around the whole university is in a better position, which clearly is an indicator that Nebraska is looking for help beyond the normal means of funding a big project, because this is a bigger project than way bigger project than anything it's ever done. Previously, the biggest project was this Osborne complex that just got finished, which went up for $165 million. Like, you could be talking 5 times that amount, 4 to 5 times that amount for what they want to do with the stadium. And that's obviously not all going to come from
Donors.
the pockets of donors.
Yeah, no chance. And we're talking about an $800 million to $1 billion project.
Possibly. And they haven't said that number, but it's headed that direction.
So I saw one of the common, misconceptions or things that people talk about. And it sort of came up here because the university is at a budget shortfall and, $5 million. And there's going to be a lot of cuts as a result of that. Nebraska as an athletic department obviously operates in its own regard on its own. And in the past, it's given back money, $1 million to the university. That's Nebraska still as an athletic department does that. But what he's talking about is a couple things. Like you mentioned, you're going to be asking for help, whether it be from the state, from the university, whatever it might be, to build that and execute that foundation.
Yeah.
And then I think the main thing he's talking about is optics and climate. And that's it makes a lot of sense because people see that stuff going up and they're like, what? I thought the university was at a $25 million budget shortfall and we got $1 billion stadium project going up right now. What's going on there? So it's optics. And I think that's weird for people to hear, but it makes a lot of sense to me.
It's always a complicated conversation because the athletic department operates in practice independently with its budget, but there's crossover. Like they're your donor dollars, if they're not going to the stadium, are they perhaps going to other entities at the university? Maybe, maybe not. Like, what's the appetite for athletic donors to dig the academic side out of a crisis? Perhaps not really high, but it's all interconnected. And even when they have separate budgets, it's tough to undertake something this large when your academic side, not just in Lincoln, but across the entire system, has got some of the issues that Nebraska's dealing with. All right, let's pass along a couple of news and notes. Connor, I wondered, did this one about Nebraska women's basketball that came across the wires on Saturday? We don't talk a lot about Amy Williams' team, but you've got some connection with them. And I wonder, as the in-arena voice of Nebraska women's basketball, what did you think when you saw this news from South Dakota on Saturday?
Well, so first of all, 5-star prospect Ashlyn Kupal, or Kupal of Tiny Wagner, South Dakota, picked Nebraska over a variety of powerhouse schools across the country. Duke was one of them. Yeah, that kind of stands out, right? But so that's awesome and huge, and she's really versatile and all that stuff. But did you see how she told Amy Williams that she was committing?
No.
So they're in a situation where they're all over. It looked like it was at Amy's house, and the whole team's there. And Ashlyn, the prospect, is there, and they're doing a game where, have you ever seen this, where someone sits in front and they have their ears plugged? So Amy Williams is sitting in a chair and she has her ears plugged. She can't hear anything that's going on, but Ashlyn is mouthing words and Amy has to figure out the words that she's saying, and the words that she mouthed were, "What is my jersey number going to be?" or something like that. And then she opened up a thing that said, I'm committing, and everybody ran up and hugged her. Awesome. Like, that's one of the cooler commitment videos that I've ever seen. So that was great. But yeah, this is huge. They're gonna be kind of loaded. I mean, if my math is right, Amy's going into her 10th year this year, because
2016, was her first. So this is 10. This is year 10. And she, if you want to do some real digging into history here, the last time Nebraska signed a player, and she's not signed yet, she will be in November, but signed a player like this, was Jessica Shepard out of Fremont, who was a 5-star recruit, candidate for National Player of the Year, signed for Connie Yorey, played for Connie Yorey for 1 year, for Amy Williams in Amy's first year at Nebraska, transferred out to Notre Dame. I think she won a national championship and is still in the WNBA. I checked that she's placed for the Minnesota Lynx. Like, that's the level of talent that, at least as far as what the ratings say, that Nebraska's getting in Ashlyn Kupal from Wagner, South Dakota, number 9 nationally, as ranked by 24/7 Sports. Not to do it, not to like do any kind of injustice to Britt Prince, the standout freshman last year on Nebraska's roster. a 5-star, I believe, in her own right, but the rating wasn't quite as high as this 6'2" forward from South Dakota. So cool. Yeah. Shout out to Nebraska women's hoops.
Yeah. And those highly touted prospects in that sport, they tend to make impacts right away.
Right,
So
right.
that's a good thing for Nebraska starting not this year, but next year. And then volleyball, of course, had their red-white scrimmage over the weekend where, I mean, you want to talk about loaded. I mean, this is a different level.
A number 9 recruit in the country would be like in the middle of the team. So they have 2 players in their freshman class who were both named National Player of the Year by different services last season. That's both Campbell Flynn, the new setter from the state of Michigan, who was pushing Bergen Riley, and some say is as good, maybe better at running Nebraska's offense than the 2-time Big Ten setter of the year, Bergen Riley, who's taken Nebraska to a pair of Final Fours and a national championship match. So her team won several of the sets in the red-white scrimmage, Campbell Flynn. And then Tariah Sigler, or T as she goes by, was also a national player of the year as a freshman last year. She's going to be on the court this year. Like, she was something else. It reminded me of Michaela Fecky, but from 2015, who turned out to be a multi-time All-American for Nebraska, just like the kind of presence that Sigler had on the court. Yeah, they're not sitting her down. She's an outside hitter, and expect to see number 11 a lot this year. So they're very, very, very deep. That's the story with Danny Busboom Kelly's first team coming out of that red-white scrimmage. They'll have the alumni match this weekend against a bunch of pros and and others who play volleyball, used to play at Nebraska. Renee Saunders, the ex-Nebraska standout, who was the coach of many time Class B state champion Omaha Skutt, will be coaching the alumni.
Pretty cool. A lot to be excited about volleyball. They now they just got to figure out the combos.
What's the lineup?
Yeah, right. So no pressure on Danny Busboom Kelly in her first year. All right, that's it for us today. Appreciate you guys tagging along. We'll be back again tomorrow. And thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show with Brian Smith. He's got you covered. Find it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.